Hello everyone and welcome to my quick and dirty shipbuilding guide for Starfield. I'm your host, Colors Fade. There are several good, thorough shipbuilding guides on YouTube already, and I highly recommend that you go watch them if you want to get all the details. For now, what I'm going to do is show you how to get into the shipbuilder, how to modify ships, show you some of my tips and tricks that I've learned, and then we're going to modify the default Star Eagle into something a little bit more functional. And what I mean by that is, by default, the Star Eagle comes with a 3x1 workshop, but it lacks a science lab. And we would really like to have that because doing research is a prerequisite for being able to mess around with weapons workbenches or spacesuit workbenches. So we want to get a research facility on this thing, and we want to reconfigure it just a little bit. And plus, I kind of like this design. So I'm going to show you how to do this because this will show you all the different things you really need to know to mess around with the shipbuilder. I'm going to preface this by saying that there are 5 ship manufacturers in the game. There's Deimos, Nova Galactic, Hope Tech, Stroud, and Tayo, and they all have their own look and feel for components on both the inside and outside of the ship. In order to build this particular ship that I want to build, the best place to go is to Paradiso on the Parima system. Upon exiting your ship and heading outside, immediately to the right is the shipyard technician. Go over and speak to him and say that you want to modify your ship, and you will be brought to this screen where you will get to see your Star Eagle and we'll start designing. Now, I recommend you have a certain amount of credits to do this. I don't know what the exact number is. We'll get there and talk about it. So once you're at this screen and you have your Star Eagle, in order to begin building on your ship, you need to hit the B key. We can take a look at some of the stats before we go. It's an A-class ship. This is an important thing to know in shipbuilding is there's A, B, and C. And the B and the C ship, they are different parts. They're higher grade. They require you to have a higher shipbuilding skill and a higher piloting skill to be able to install many of those components. We don't have that skill yet, especially when you can get this ship so early in the game by running that Ranger quest line. You will not have the skill to be able to install B and C parts. All right, so when you get to this screen, as soon as you talk to the technician, if you want to start building on your ship and modifying it, all you have to do is hit the B key on the PC, and we're here. And we can see some really important stats at the very bottom of the screen. We can notice that our hull has a number of 948. Our max crew is 5. Our jump range is 16 light years. Our mobility is 93, and our mass is 1089, and our top speed is 150. Now, the first thing I want to point out is the max crew size. By the time you get this ship in the very beginning of the game, when you finish the Ranger quest line, you will not have the skills necessary to be able to allow you to have a large crew. In fact, the largest crew you'll be able to have is 4, and I believe the game counts the pilot, you, as one of the crew members. So really, you can only add 3 crew members for the crew interface. So having a max crew of 5 is not entirely ideal. We're going to bring that down just a little bit, but we're going to add a lot of functionality to the ship. So let's get building. I have a blueprint here for how I like to do this ship. So let's get started. And the first tip that I want to give you is this. If you double click on any component, it selects all the other components that are connected to that one. This is a very fast way if you want to paint the whole ship a certain color. Hit the J key to start painting. Now, most components have 3 colors, which is why you have 3 color slots over here. But a lot of components only have 2. So you go to the color and you select your saturation and you select your brightness. And if I want to change this ship to be a white color, which I would when I'm done, this is how you would do it. Instead of, like most of us, like me as a complete moron when I first started doing this, I was painting each piece individually and saying, man, this is a pain in the butt. And since we had a mouse, I was hoping you could just, drag and drop a big old square around it and select the whole thing. Well, it's actually easier than dragging a big old square around it. You just have to double click a component part. For now, we're not going to paint it. We're just going to change a bunch of components and move a bunch of things around. So again, I recommend going to Paradiso on the Parima system if you want to make this exact build, and that's the key. Now, the second thing I want to show you is handy if you're building a ship from scratch. Notice here when I hover over this spot, there's this little blue dot and a little blue arc. This means this is a connective piece. This is where you can actually connect new components or existing components. Hit the G key for attach, and it'll bring up a list of all the different things you can can do. There are a bunch of different categories in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to go to structural, and we're just going to pick something because I want to show you this keyboard command. If we select a Hope radiator and click it on there, you can either press the E button or you can just click your mouse. The next thing you want to do, if you want to rapidly create multiple components of the same kind, hit Shift G and it'll give you another one like that. So like that, we hit the E key, Shift G again, and there's more. We can do all of that. So Shift G, remember, is a good thing. And Z will change the orientation of some parts, and you will see how that will work here quickly. Now, we're not going to get rid of everything on the ship, but we're going to get rid of some parts, and we're going to add new parts. So remember, our mass is 1089 and our mobility is 93. We're not going to be quite as mobile when we're done with this, but it won't matter. I have had no problem flying this new design and destroying things. So first thing we want to do is we want to be able to move these suppressors. These are your EMP weapons, which come with the ship, which is great. Notice down in the bottom left, it says Starship Design Rank 4. That's what you have to install these. But since they already come on the ship, it's great. We have them. All we want to do is move them around, and there's two ways to do that. So I'll show you that. First, you can click on a part once it's selected red, and then you can drag it and get it in the spot that you want. We want to mount these underneath here. The second way to do it is to delete the part. Don't worry, it's not going to go away. We're going to touch this part where we're going to hover the mouse over where we want to add it. We're going to hit the G key. Since this part here, this connector here can only take weapons, then it brings up the array of weapons, and we want to go down until we find the one that has a plus by it. Plus 5975, that's the worth of the part. We're adding this back in. So it's not going to cost us any money to add this. This is the part that we removed. This particular star dock doesn't have this suppressor. So that's another way that we know this is the one we just removed. But the plus is the easiest way to find the parts that you removed already. So we did that. That's on there. Now we're going to go in and we're going to remove these. You have to have enough landing gear on your ship. We're going to remove this, and that's okay. We're going to take these and delete these as well. So those are gone. And now we're going to take this and delete this. This is our landing gear. I mean, not landing, but landing bay. And what we're going to do is replace it with a different landing bay that I like much better, which this is one of the Nova Galactic parts that I really like. So we're going to do that. And you can see the reason I like it is because of the form factor. It matches this top piece as far as its curvature. I'm real big on the aesthetics of how ships look. We are going to have to remove these thruster pieces. These are additional thrusters, which is going to reduce our maneuverability, and that's totally okay because your ship is still going to be plenty maneuverable. All right. Now we're going to remove this big, huge Cap C aft top piece, and we're going to take our reactor and move it up here into the back. We're also going to take this off, this landing gear back here, and those pieces are going to be gone. Now we can start from the underside of the ship. We can remove the Stroud storeroom. It's not going to be necessary, and we're going to remove the engineering bay. And what we're going to do is replace them with a smaller engineering bay and the science bay. So go in here and you want to rotate up on the upper left until you get to habitats. There are 3 different kinds at this starport, which is what I really like about Paradiso. It's got all the Hope Tech stuff, all the Nova Tech stuff, and all the Stroud stuff. We're going to use Stroud for all of this, and we're going to go to the all-in-one. Now notice down here, it has all-in-one, and then as you rotate through it, it's got all-in-one B. It's got an armory, captain's quarters, a computer core, a control station, infirmary, living quarters, science lab, and workshop. These are the pieces that we're interested in. I want the workshop there connected to that piece, and then what we're going to do is connect this to same thing with the Stroud. We're going to get the science lab in there. We're going to delete this back piece down here, which is Demos, which we don't need. We're going to take this and move it up here, and we're going to take this and move it in there, shortening up the ship a little bit here. All right. Now we need to get to some structural stuff. You can see down here it says errors, unattached modules, and minimum landing gear count. We're going to remedy that right away. First thing we're going to do is get ourselves some landing gear. Right here, you want this AccuLander, and you want that angle right down here to be like this. So we're going to put that piece on. And then we're going to come over here on this side and do the same thing, the same piece of landing gear, but notice it looks a little different. If you want to get that angle up, go like this, hit the Z key, and see, then it looks correct. It's got that angle on it. Now we're going to add my favorite part, which is going to the structural stuff and just adding the fun looking things. There's a bunch of Nova cowlings in here, which look great if you want to build a Nova type ship. I kind of want to do that sometime. Right now we're going for the Stroud stuff. This is the bottom piece, so we want to flip it upside down like that. And same thing over here. So you hit your Z key so you get it oriented correctly. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to add a cowling piece from the Stroud. It's the Stroud cowling right there, like that. Stroud cowling 1L PT, but you got to rotate that one around. And then you can go back down here and you can grab that. And this one you have to rotate around. And there, it's starting to look a little bit like that ship in my design there, which is really cool. Now, the next pieces, you can just take and drag like that. This piece of landing gear underneath this one. But we're still going to, and there's this. We're still going to add a piece of landing gear here. On the back end, we're going to add a piece of landing gear here. We're going to add that same one, and you can make this one look however you want to. You can leave it square like that if you want to, or you can rotate it in and try to make it look like an angle. I kind of like the square one on the back side here. So dragging that stuff. These are your engines. We're just going to keep the default ones that the game has. Going to go to this gear. We want the squarish looking one like that. And now you've got these two slots back here. Now remember, the ship came with quite a bit of cargo already, but we're just going to make it even more massive. We like to have a lot of cargo. Remember, we're a hoarder. So touch the inside of this piece out here on this engine, and you can bring up cargo right here. And the biggest piece we can grab is the Store Max 60, which is 435 pieces of cargo. 435, whatever it is, cubic meters, whatever. And that's going to really up our cargo. Now our cargo's at 3150, baby. You can see that our mass has changed from 1089 to 1284, and our mobility has gone down to 72. That's okay. This thing still flies like a dream. It's absolutely great. Now, we're going to change this right here is the Stroud Brig. I recommend keeping it because I don't know yet if there are missions later on in the game where you're going to be able to capture prisoners, but there's 2 holding cells in here, and there's also beds for people to sleep in. So I've been keeping that. Up here on the top, the captain's quarters, I've been replacing that with living quarters. I'm going to go to Habs, grab Stroud all-in-one, and there's going to be living quarters because this gives you 2 more passenger slots. And then down here in the middle is a control station, and I delete that. And actually we're going to take this thing and move it out here so we have a little better room to look. And the reason I do that is because what I really want to put down in there is an all-in-one berth, and the all-in-one berth A. And the reason for that is because the all-in-one berth A is going to have a bed in it, and it's right next to your landing bay. So it's a good way to remind you that you should rest right before you exit the ship. That way you get the XP bonus. So I love the way this ship becomes functionally useful after we do this. The last thing is this over here. There's living quarters over here. We put some on top. This is redundant. What I like to have down here instead, actually, is the armory. So the Stroud Armory, but the Stroud Armory is not the one you want. The one you actually want, if you want mannequins, is the Nova Galactic one. So you want to go up to Nova Galactic and get their armory right there. There you go. Now, the last thing we're going to change on this is some weapons. These two things down in front are great. They require Starship Design Rank 4, as we mentioned earlier, to put on. All we did is move them. We want to keep those. And these lasers up here, these pulse lasers are really nice. They're Starship Design Rank 4 as well to put those on there. They do 19 shield. There's 2 of them, and they fire really fast. What I want to replace are the 2 missiles. Now, these are good missiles. These, again, require Starship Design Rank 4, and they do 65 damage. So together, that's 130. But we can actually get ours up to 141, and we can shoot 3 missiles at a time. You can shoot 3 weapons at a time as long as they're the exact same weapon so that you can group them together. So what we're going to do is delete that. Plus, because I want to show you how to do the weapon grouping. And we're going to go over here and we're going to click on this. Since it's a weapon hardpoint, all it's going to show us is the weapons. Here is the 270A missile launcher, was just 47. Now, if we go down here to the 270B, it's a B class. And we could put that on there, except here's the problem. In order to put B class anything on your ship, you have to have a B class reactor. And if you go over here and we delete this reactor, and we say we're going to put another reactor on here, this reactor right here is a B class, and we can't put it on because we need a piloting rank 3. And in order to put a C class reactor on, you need a piloting rank 4. So we're stuck with the reactor that we have. But we can still get more missile power. So this is the important thing, is we come down here and we say, I'm going to put the 270A on there. And I'm going to put the 270A on here. And then I'm going to move up here and I'm going to put a 270A on right there. Now, we got one error. You hit the C key to go into your errors. Missing weapon assignment. You go into weapons, click it over here, or hit the T key, and you can see weapon 1, weapon 2, and weapon 3, or weapon 0, 1, 2, 3. I want to put my pulse lasers in the first slot, so you're going to do that. In the second slot, I want to have my missiles, which is all the 270As, and in the third slot, I want to have the EM weapons. Now we're done with that. So you can see, here's the changes. Our hull went from 948 to 940. Our cargo jumped all the way up from 2,280 to 3,150. We dropped the max crew from 5 to 4, which is okay. Remember, at the beginning of the game, we don't have enough skill to have more than 4 crew members anyway, so it doesn't do us any good to have more crew slots than that. Our jump range went from 16 light years to 15. Our mobility dropped down significantly from 93 to 72, but this thing still is awesome. Our top speed is 150, and our mass changed from 1089 to 1284. So we became heavier and less mobile. No big deal. It still is absolutely. Our missile power is 141 instead of 130. Our laser power, it says, is 12. Our EM is 2. This thing is fantastic. And what it cost us to make these modifications is just under 24,000 credits, which is not a lot. So we took this ship and functionally improved it. And there's one other tiny little piece of functional improvement you can do. You have an exposed science lab down here in the back. You might as well go over here to structural and add a nice little window to it. So let's take a look at what this ship looks like and why it's so functional. You hit tab, initializing, hit accept. Oh, we're going to accept all the modifications, and then we're going to do one final thing to it. We're going to double click and we're going to paint this sucker. You hit enter by default. There you go. That's all the pieces. It's a sharp looking ship. You hit accept and you're done. Let's go take a look at our ship. There she is in all her glory. She's got quite a bit of power. But I like how functional it is. First of all, having a forward entrance rocks over having a side entrance or a back entrance. And it's really nice because from the captain's quarters to the rest of the ship, it's really a sleek design. So here is your bridge, which is great. You've got your private captain's locker up here. But notice, as you're about to go out on an adventure down there, over here, there's a bed, so you can get your hour of sleep for your EXP bonus. This leads down. We might as well go see this first. Here is our science and workshop bays. Here's your science lab. So you have access to your pharmaceutical labs, and you have access to your research lab. And then over here, you have your weapon workbench, and you have your spacesuit workbench, and you have your industrial workbench. So you've got all of those things all grouped up right together. So everything that you need to do in this game for all the crafting
ship is way bigger than Dad's.
is all on this ship, which is fantastic. Now we come in here. We have the brig. We've got 2 positions here.
Glad to see you're back in one
for holding
piece.
prisoners, someone who I assume can later on have that job. And then this is cool. The armory. You have a whole ton of places. And there it is. And my favorite part, there are 2 mannequins. Now, here's my caveat. Once you get this set up and you start putting things in your armory, do not change your ship. Because if you do even something like cosmetic change, like painting it or changing one component on it, what I have found is that you will lose all of these things in your mannequins. I lost my whole entire mantis suit doing that. So I do not recommend doing that. That seems to be a bug. We're going to wait and see what Bethesda says about it. But as far as I'm concerned, this is fantastic. It's a really functional design, and it has everything that I need for adventuring, and it plays pretty good in space.
Up and away.
So there you have it, folks. Quick and dirty guide to shipbuilding, and if you want to turn that Ranger ship into something a little more functional and useful for the rest of your adventuring time in Starfield, that is how you do it. If you have any questions or there's anything you want to know, please drop comments below. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. My Patreon is listed in the description below, and I will see you all next time. Until then, happy gaming, everyone.